Now that we have a data model in place, we're going to bring in a library called JSON Serializable to use our Firestore data as Dart classes. This step is technically optional, but it's highly recommended. Because here's the issue. When you fetch data from Firestore, it returns that data as a map, where the keys are strings and the values are dynamic based on whatever is returned from Firestore. It's entirely possible to work with maps in your application, but you lose the ability to strongly type your data, and you don't get IntelliSense or good tooling when you're working with it. That's fine when you have something really simple, but we have a moderately complex data model here, but it would be much better if we had classes with null safety and sound typing. In order to make that possible, we first need to represent our data in Firestore with Dart classes. Create a file called models in the services directory, then go ahead and define a new class called topic. This topic class represents a topic document in Firestore. In addition to topic, I'm also going to define classes for report and quiz, as well as question and option for the embedded maps on the quiz document. The class definition is very simple here. We define instance variables that match the name of the fields in Firestore, along with their corresponding data types. Once that's done, I would highly recommend setting up a constructor here to assign a default value to each one of these properties. In my opinion, it's much better to assign a default value than to make something nullable. That way you're always guaranteed to have a value, so you can use it with null safety and worry less about runtime errors. Now from here, you'll want to fill out the class definition for each one of these entities. They all follow the same basic pattern that I just showed you. And I would just recommend copying the code from the full source code. The next challenge is converting a JSON-like Firestore map into one of these class instances. That's where JSON Serializable comes in. We can install it by going to the pubspec YAML file and adding JSON annotation to the dependencies, as well as build runner and JSON Serializable to the dev dependencies. What this package does is take JSON and convert it into Dart classes. And it does that by automatically generating code in the project. If we go back into our models file, we can import JSON annotation, and then we'll add this line of code that says part models.g.dart, which represents a file that will be automatically generated containing source code that we can actually use in the project. There's a couple more modifications that we'll need to make to each class. The first one is adding the JSON Serializable decorator to the top of each class. Then from there, we'll need to define a factory constructor called fromJSON that returns this weird symbol starting with an $_sign. This code looks kind of weird, but it's basically just telling JSON Serializable what to do. It's the kind of thing you just copy from the documentation and not worry about. And finally, each class will need to have a toJSON method that also returns one of these weird symbol things. Go ahead and do that for each class, and now we're ready for the fun part. From the terminal, run flutter pub run build runner build. This command will automatically generate a models.g.dart file in the services directory. And when you open it up, you'll see a bunch of automatically generated code here that you'll be very thankful you didn't write on your own. We can now instantiate these classes directly from our Firestore data and use them with null safety and IntelliSense, making our code much more reliable.